To Modern Mondays here at Guardian Games in Portland, Oregon. We are Portland Paper. I am Travis Cooper, joined in the booth by our first match one winner here.
Jeremy James. I got myself a bye for the round, so I'm going to come in here and help out.
Yeah, and it looks like we have a pretty interesting matchup here. We have Urchin playing some variant of a deck that we know as Dice Factory against a blue-white control deck here that Hunter's piloting.
So the Dice Factory is a sort of clever deck of utilizing um, counters on artifacts in order to ramp up in mana really fast to do explosive mana things, much like you would with Tron lands or something, but we're doing it with mana rocks instead.
Yeah, it's going to use a card like Core Tapper that's a creature they can tap to add a counter on an artifact or sacrifice it to add two, and then things like Ever-Flowing Chalice or Astral Cornucopia to then, have a lot of mana, and then I know Urchin's playing Karn plus a Wishboard to lock your opponent out. You got some probably Walking Ballistas hanging out in there to ping some creatures. Interesting interaction that Core Tapper has is you can actually uptick your opponent's vials. So if they go to tick it up, you can then also bring it to 4 or 5. So it has these really sort of kind of interesting advantages that aren't necessarily part of like the core strategy of the deck.
It also, much like the Hardened Scales deck, has the ability to go in and utilize some of the newer proliferate cards. If she chooses, I don't know her exact list, but being able to add counters on everything is also pretty explosive.
All right, we get a Surge node here. And a Cornucopia on 0 that's probably going to get uh, pumped up with a Core Tapper in future turns, and a Mox that is now turned on to provide mana.
So she seems to be on track. Let's see if it's going to be a really explosive turn 2.
All right, we get a snow-covered island. It's interesting now that a lot of Snow Matters cards got printed in Modern Horizons, but decks that don't play Matters cards are now playing snow-covered basics.
I get it. Strategically, it makes your opponent maybe have to try to pretend to play around something or at least spend some mental energy on it. Maybe actually make a decision point. But I know this has been said before. It sadly, oh, we have a core tapper.
We got the Core Tapper. Oh, and it gets Spell Snared.
As it should.
Yeah, Spell Snare also is something that I feel like recently in Modern has a lot of utility and has maybe replaced Spell Pierce, which was being played a fair amount maybe a month
I
ago.
agree. I think Spell Pierce has been really good for a long time and maybe was underplayed. And now Force of Negation is able to take that spot in a lot of roles, but where Spell Snare has really been able to take advantage of the way that the mana curve has lowered in Modern lately.
Yeah, 2 is a really important bottleneck for a lot of decks here.
And a lot of decks end up really struggling when they're in the draw. And so just having something to be able to fight back is really great.
Okay, Inventor's Fair is being targeted by Field of Ruin, and we have a response here.
We see now we have a 3 mana rock. Yeah, we're countering a Field of Ruin activation here.
It's interesting that Hunter chooses to go for it at that point. I could almost see just Field of Ruin being more valuable as, one colorless mana when you're playing Azorius Control, trying to get to Planeswalkers, Cryptic Commands, etc.
I'm with you. I think that might have been a mistake that he didn't anticipate the access to all the mana.
And there we have a Cryptic in Hunter's hand.
And play another Field of Ruin, and I'll pass back to you. It's when you're done shuffling.
Perhaps Hunter was really wanting some mana fixing there, hoping the Field of Ruin activation would have a target and resolve.
Right. Oh, Mystic Forge? Really? Oh. That's very exciting. So this is just in my mind, a slightly better Experimental Frenzy.
That's like the artifact version of Experimental Frenzy.
Yeah, it's quite exciting with the ability to 0 mana, exile top of your library, try again.
We're well past the days of mono artifacts here. Like, got a land drop and we're thinking about it. Maybe passing the turn?
I don't really
There we
mind
go.
this. She can continue to build up her mana presence with the core tap or the surge node.
Response? I'll go for it.
Right. Urchin goes courting her own blast zone after Hunter tries to Field of Ruin it.
Right, she's gonna end up even on mana if she doesn't have any more basics than the one, and she may or may not. I'm not really sure, but making sure that Hunter is still on 2 land is super exciting for her position. I think keeping her off of Cryptic Command is pretty nice.
I will charge.
Alright, so she's up to 6 mana available right now. Do we have anything interesting?
Urchin's playing the cards pretty close, so can't quite tell what's in the hand.
I'll card the draw.
But we're going to crack one of those Horizon lands and draw a card.
Right, no shortage of mana here.
And the deck doesn't really need a lot of colored mana. We had the Mox Opal and Forest. I think the green is for Ancient Stirrings in this version of the deck.
So, as earlier I was mentioning how Snowland strategically may be replacing basic lands. We see that Urchin has, you know, a pretty unique forest in play.
I feel it's sort of, you get this tiny micro advantage playing Snowlands, but there's also the micro advantage of having like really awesome basic lands that aren't Snowlands. You know,
I have to agree with you 100%. I think I think if we're going to be posturing one way or the other, might as well posture with style.
Oh, Mystic Forge. Here we
Nice.
go. We
There
got
we
a lot of
go.
mana available here, or at least enough to do some things here.
Oh, one more.
Oh,
Right.
With only 5 mana.
went through a couple Mox Opals there.
This hurts. Pass to you.
So it looks like Hunter's stranded with a Jason hand, where if we didn't use those Field of Ruins earlier in the game, we'd be able to cast right now. Which is interesting too, with Modern Horizons really affecting the format, being able to be a control deck, tap out with Jace, and then still have a card like Force of Negation as a backup, and you recouped your lost card advantage with Jace, and then you can still counter a non-creature spell.
Yep, it's a way of attacking linear non-creature strategies in that manner.
Color is floating.
You get Everflowing Chalice.
Yep.
Get a Core Tapper. It's 2 free cards.
Cornucopia on 0.
Cornucopia on 0. Mishra's Bauble. We're at four cards off that Mystic Forge currently.
4 for 4.
Not thinking about sacrificing the Core Tapper.
I have 1 floating. Sack.
Core Tapper sacrifice to add some counters on Cornucopia.
Should probably just move the game too.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I don't.
Okay.
I missed the land drop after.
Alright, Hunter's seen enough. The Azorius control deck really wanting to play kind of a 1-for-1, then get some 2-for-1s, have some planeswalkers with card advantage later in the game, and Urchin played a bunch of free cards. Seemed like there was more coming down. Hunter had a mana leak perhaps in hand, but that was about all the interaction we had.
Yeah, I was able to catch on the camera the table talk about him claiming to have misplayed with those Field of Ruins, and I think I would agree that those ended up not being very well serving for him, that he just threw away those lands. Um,
Yeah, that's definitely something where the first time you might not have realized that your opponent could actually, activate the Inventor's Fair, but at that point, kind of really only want to use the Field of Ruins if you know you can target a land that's going to resolve, the land's still going
yeah.
to be there, because this Azorius control deck is really mana hungry. It wants to get to 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 lands, Snapcaster Cryptic territory, or to be able to play multiple planeswalkers in a turn.
Right, or at least get that Jace down at some point.
It's true. It really needs at least 4 lands to function in the mid game, but wants to hit land drops every turn. As far as sideboards go, I imagine Control's going to bring in some kind of artifact destruction, if there is any, or detention sphere type effect. If that Mystic Forge resolves, you're in trouble. Also negates if there's extra force and negations on the board, Dovin's vetoes, cards like that. And you might want to have a clock, so I could also see bringing in some kind of threat.
Right, even a Geist Entrapped.
Geist would be great.
Or at least the Angels.
Yep.
So I have a strategic opinion about what occurred there, that I think it would be very valuable for Hunter to know exactly the win cons from Urchin's deck, which I don't believe he saw,
Right.
how she was going to win. However, with time considerations, in order for him to get 2 games, I think forfeiting early there still might serve him well, that he could try to get this in 3 games.
I think that is a big part of playing control decks, specifically blue-white control, is that a lot of times you effectively have control of the game. You're drawing multiple cards a turn, but your win condition is maybe ultimating Jace, Snapcaster Beats can take a while, especially when your opponent is taking some time with their turns, where they might not really have many necessarily decent outs, but you're still playing the game. Winning the game is part of Magic the Gathering. And so knowing when to concede when you're losing, so that you get time to actually win 2 games, is pretty important skill to have. And just managing your clock, shortcutting well when you're playing control decks, the clock is a big part of the game, where other decks, it's not necessarily that important.
So I'm willing to bet that you are not familiar with what the win con is in Dice Factory.
I'm guessing a win con for Dice Factory, the main one is going to be Karn Lattice Lock, and then just pumping up a Ballista for a Fireball.
Yeah, that's kind of what I would guess too. I'm not sure what Hunter knows. Maybe he knows more than we do. Maybe he's actually experienced in this matchup. But if you aren't experienced in this matchup, do you think it was right to forfeit that game?
It seems like if you're seeing that your opponent is making a lot of mana, I would currently in Modern assume that there's the Karn package is going to be in the deck, and there could be, especially when Urchin was drawing a whole lot of cards each turn, I might have gone a couple more turns just to see what else is in the deck.
I'm curious too. I think I would have gone a lot longer. I think I would have dragged that out, and I think I might have been wrong. I think forfeiting early might be right, because I'm not a blue-white control player, and I think that winning those games might take a bit of time. I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt on this.
Yeah, it's definitely a judgment call. I don't think there's a right answer there. And Hunter might also know the matchup pretty well.
Yeah, that'd be great for him.
It looks like on chat we said 77 people. I think we're at 70, 79. Is that right? Are we at 77?
Yeah, it's up there.
Me too.
There's a lot of people. We're having a Mythic
79.
Championship qualifier next weekend here at Guardian Games. It is on Sunday. Might be some spots left. Call in if you want to get on the list. But a lot of folks want to get some practice for that. So we're deciding if we're keeping the hand. Looks like Hunter mulliganed once. I always feel like I'm cheating when I do the London mulligan.
Oh, it is very interesting, changing the worlds. I've been through both mulligan changes in my Magic career, and the first one seemed like a free roll. Like, that one was an obvious, everything was better. The second one came in with a lot more skepticism and fear. But the ability for regular games to be able to play out like a regular game more often has been awesome for me.
Looks like we got a ceremonious rejection brought in from the board for Hunter.
Yeah, that may be the right call. I'm not sure if Surge Node would be the one that I would target,
Try that again.
but it's pretty nice to
Island
just
value.
get her to slow down. Maybe he has another logic knot in hand or something.
Diagram.
Okay.
Circle.
Yep.
Oh, well, we get another surge node here.
Counters. All charge.
Okay.
Instant.
Yep.
And we get Ancient Stirrings. What are we looking
Oh,
for?
if that resolves,
What are we going
like,
to find?
I'm of the opinion he does not have a logic knot.
I think there's a Force of Negation hanging out in Hunter's hand. And
Oh, he
might
also
wanna-
had the Mox Opal up.
I'll take Cavern.
Cavern Souls.
Perhaps we have something like an Urza.
Is Core Tapper and Ballista both constructs, maybe?
Ooh. I was thinking we might have something like an Urza sideboard plan. But
That'd be fun. But I could see Construct being win condition, like du jour, that you really want to resolve that one.
And can we get a Surge Node up here on the card fetcher? It's an interesting kind of odd card.
Right. I'm pretty sure it takes 1 to tap to add a counter to.
Yep, you can
one of
move
your
a counter
things.
from Surge Node onto.
But it's not free. You have
It's
to
not
actually
free. You have to pay
mana.
1 mana. Correct.
On next step, I'm going to field the last time.
Sure. I'll search.
All right, Hunter actually able to successfully use Field of Ruin here, hitting the blast zone.
Forest.
Snow covered plains. Since that does technically matter. Oh, they're both right up.
With the floating veto.
Yep.
I'm gonna charge one second.
Okay.
All right, with the floating mana, Urchin's going to use to activate Surge Node's ability, move another counter around, getting some mana up here.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like the speed at which this deck can add mana, and Mox Opal tying into that much better than it would in a Tron deck is fun. That you get to have a lot of artifact interaction
It seems
with
similar.
a super ramp deck.
It seems similar to what Hardened Scales is doing with like creatures, but Urchin's doing it with mana.
Right. These cards are quite a bit more resilient than 1/1s with modular.
So Hunter not quite at Cryptic mana here. We're short a blue. I bet that Field of Ruin is probably, if nothing's worth countering with a Force of Negation, is going to go after Urchin's land at the end of turn here. Seems like we might have an interesting decision point.
You mean construct?
And Cavern of Souls is going to name Construct.
Floating mana.
Okay.
Floating mana with Mox Opal, so we're going to be casting something.
Floating.
Right. So that's one of those points where, with the Cavern of Souls naming construct, we're probably going to get a construct resolved here. The Force Negation may have had the option of targeting that Mox Opal that turn, and I don't think that's probably the right call at the time. But it may be the case that this ends up being stranded in hand.
Yeah, I would
For a while.
probably say, I would assume there's a card, and I really want to say that Force of Negation for a card.
I would agree with if that's going to be what goes down. But it might be the case that there's a lot of reactive spells in hand that you'd like to be able to utilize your mana.
Alright, we get a Chalice on 2, and this is going to cause a pause here. Hunter might have a couple 2s that he's thinking about once a cast later in the game. Snapcaster being one of them. Saw some mana leaks in there.
Have in here.
Disenchant is at 2.
Hard cast forced.
I'll pass Veil of Summer.
Okay.
I'll draw a card.
Oh,
Ooh.
Veil of Summer.
Wow, that's pretty good.
Can we get that one up? Veil of Summer. That's one of the new color hosers out of one of the new sets.
Yeah, it's from Core 2020, making a wave in Legacy. Really interesting to see it here in
Yeah.
Modern.
Hop in main phase.
Sure.
An interesting thing with Chalice is that
Go ahead.
Urchin's going to be able to manipulate how many counters are on it once it's in play. But Veil of Summer basically is, well, you're playing counters. Joke's on you, buddy. So you're going to draw a card if an opponent has cast a blue or black spell this turn, and spells you control can't be countered. So you can cast a spell when it's countered, then put that on the stack in response, and get your spell to resolve and draw a card.
There's also the secondary clause of permanents you control gain hexproof from blue and black spells till the end of turn, which can come up in a variety of manners.
And here's the core tapper, so the engine's starting to fire here.
I blast him.
And we get a blast zone on 1.
That it could counter a cryptic command that's trying to bounce something.
I'm curious if we're going to get a cryptic mana with this Chalice, if we're going to pump that up to 4.
Yeah, stop Jace, stop cryptic.
Okay.
Alright.
Yep. It's an exciting combination.
And cryptic is one of the few ways that blue-white can deal with the Chalice. Curious how many Teferi's Hunter is playing in the main deck of both the 3 and 5 mana variety. That's also a card that can deal with the Chalice.
Another.
I think I saw a 3 mana Teferi hanging out in Hunter's hand.
I was curious about the Chalice of the Void, leaving that on 2, 3, or 4. Like, there's very difficult cards to handle in all these ways, but New Teferi is one of those that I would be more afraid of because it interacts so favorably with this board state that I think I would have left that on 3 instead of 4.
Yeah, it seems like the blue-white control decks now are playing 2 Narset, 2 Jace, 2 3 mana Teferi, maybe 1 5 mana Teferi. The Planeswalker package is pretty in flux.
It's also the case that it's demonstrated playing pack negation or force negation.
All right. Playing Teferi, Hero of Dominaria. We're plussing it. Drawing a card.
After that, I will move to end step. Trigger on the stack. Any response?
Nope.
Okay. Untap. Island and
You know, minus Walking Ballista, the Planeswalkers are pretty safe to deploy here for Hunter. There's not a lot of ways for Urchin to interact with those.
Right. Yeah, she's currently just playing top deck right now, and there's no pressure. It'd be really nice to hit something like a Pithing Needle or Sorcerer's Spyglass.
Another Surge node there.
But the Walking Ballista will be a nice hit once that occurs.
I'll check.
I'll pass it.
I'll respond.
Yeah.
And put
Figure you're gonna do it eventually.
All right, Core Tapper was
Might as well do it.
gunning after Teferi.
Move
Miss
back.
Path, Urchin sacked it to put some counters on Cornucopia. And now
I will
we keep
plus
going.
6.
Okay.
Yeah. Plus the 6 to draw card.
Interesting. See 2 cryptics? At least 1 cryptic hanging out in Hunter's hand? Can't quite tell. Stony Silence seems alright.
After that, I will move to end step.
Yeah, it's a good one. It's tough that Blast Zone's gone, huh?
Kind of would have. Seems like this next turn might involve some amount of perhaps targeting the cavern with Field of Ruin, maybe minusing on the Chalice so that you have Cryptic Mana up and to be able to cast it.
No, on Urchin's side, she lost
I
a
will
Blast Zone that could have taken care of the Stony
Yeah.
Silence.
tap 2 to flash into Snapcaster.
Sure.
Target Ceremonious.
Okay.
And cast Ceremonious.
Can't
Sorry.
be counted.
Oh, right. I forgot. It's Construct.
Yeah, that's
So
a
that's good.
rough play pattern.
Yeah, it looks like Hunter tried to counter Ballista that can't be countered, but it's still a valid target for the spell.
So I'll move to my turn.
We're all practicing to be a little better here. We're going along with REO rules for that round, as opposed to some F&M takebacks.
Well, all the players made legal decisions, so
Oh, I
you
agree.
can't. I mean, even at regular RL, you just make a mistake, but you can't take it back. It's not like a missed trigger or something. So
I approve of both players' professional advancement of the board after that.
yeah. It seems like Hunter might have a path left over in hand, which is pretty good at this point. I might be interested in just pathing that ballista. Or there's Snapcaster, so Snap Path is also
So you force.
an option, and we're getting a Force of Negation off of that Narset.
Okay, I might as well ask. I'm gonna tap one. I'm going to move to end step, untap the island and the field, and I'll pass back to you.
Might have been tempted to just shoot off that path when Urchin couldn't pump up the
Okay, do you want to
Ballista?
get it done earlier, and I'm going to path it.
So it seems like
I'll get over.
can't pump it up anyways because of Stony Silence, but it's gonna get pathed. So what do you think Urchin's ways to win this game are at this point? Paths to victory here, no pun intended.
I think it would have to be sideboard card that handles Stony Silence, and I can't imagine playing this deck without having some plan for that card. So, there.
I'm going to. Oh, it's tap. I'm going to minus on Narset to look at the top.
It, my opinion is I would see it Nature's Claim,
Okay.
or maybe the new green
Force of Vigor.
Force of Vigor, right? Maybe that seems hard. She doesn't have a lot of green cards.
And we get the first attack of the game here that deals damage.
Snapcaster.
Ballista tried, but didn't quite succeed.
I'll just pass.
It's like at some point I really want to see that Teferi minus to get rid of that Chalice.
I think he's just going for the win, and it might be a time constraint situation too. Again, we started this game at 30 minutes, and we're down to 14:46.
Okay.
Yeah.
Return. Mine takes turn.
All
Here we
right.
go.
And now we ultimate Teferi.
Yeah, I got you.
This is my emblem.
Got an emblem out. We're
It's
gonna-
pretty.
After that, I'll move to combat.
Mhm.
Swing it for 2. Second main.
Mhm.
Going to tap 3. Tap 3, and I'm going to cast another Narset. Sure. This one goes away, and I'll minus this one.
And we get an Narset deployed and minusing, which actually doesn't draw a Hunter card.
And I will show you a surgical.
It's an interesting choice that Hunter chose Surgical, where Hunter already has Surgical in hand, and then you're kind of giving up a sideboard choice if you don't actually end up casting that in this game, where if you show Cryptic, you assume that Cryptic's in the deck.
There you go.
Okay.
All right.
Right.
Looks
So
like a scoop there. for
Urchin has
Urchin.
decided that with 13 minutes left, she was confident she was going to end up losing this game, and maybe game 3 could have ended in a draw. But I don't think that's what she wants either. I think being able to try a 12.5-minute game for game 3 is on her strategy.
Yeah, at this point, I feel like Urchin has the ability to win a game in a short amount of time. You know, anywhere between 5 and 10 minutes, Urchin can win a game. On the other hand, it's probably going to take Hunter a little bit longer to win a game if there's not a concession involved or just really bad luck with not having land drops or mulliganing to oblivion on Urchin side. So strategically, I do like conceding there. Even though within Adventure's Fair you might have had some kind of out to win, but yeah, Urchin I think has more of a chance to win a game in our time constraints than Hunter has a chance to win
Yeah,
a game.
it definitely seemed like that game was settled. Hunter had 6 cards in hand or something too, and
Six
was about to
cards
be able
into
to
Fairy,
bounce
yeah.
the chalice on 4.
Yeah, at that point, if you're Urchin, the only reason to play it out is to run down time on the clock.
Or also to see sideboarding decisions.
Correct.
Hard-
And we
hard
did see
selection was
Hunter
good.
reveal a sideboard card that was unnecessary reveal there, so
Yeah.
One more spot.
Yeah, I'm not sure that I would bring in Surgical in this matchup. But maybe he knows something I don't know. There could be a graveyard combo that has a bunch of mana that she uses. I'm not sure.
no, there was a gift just happened. There was some uh, fraternal love going on the stream.
Oh, how wonderful.
Just thank Neltrano for gifting a sub to Nuglo. Wow. Hope we're pronouncing those correctly. But yeah, we do appreciate any and all support y'all want to throw at us, and just hanging out on the stream is cool, and being involved with chat.
Yeah, all of it's really great. This is a really fun community we've built up here in the Portland modern scene and paper magic in general. It's nice to get more people involved that are interested in what we deliver.
Yeah, it's not every city that you can go out on just a Monday night and have 80 people playing in a tournament, which kind of like larger, definitely larger than some when we used to have the PPTQ systems I went to, and almost as large as when we had PTQs.
Yeah, it's really been a growing dynamically here over the years, and we have a whole age range that goes up and down. We've got a lot of variety of the players that come in with experience or not.
Alright. I will take flight.
Yep. Seven.
But I have a lot of wonderful things to say about Guardian Games. It's been very welcoming to me and a lot of my friends, and they've done it in such a way that we've all been coming back for a long time.
I actually need
Yeah, I started playing Modern here maybe
Nice.
ooh,
Sorry, it's not custard.
almost 6 years ago at this point, which makes me feel old. But I remember, yeah, it was we were getting a dozen people, and then it's like grown from there, where we regularly have 40 plus people, up to 90, 100 sometimes on Monday nights. It's a really good community. We'll run into some friendly people, but then also like really competitive decks too.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
when you get to the 3-0 bracket, you're definitely playing against some really skilled players that maybe been on the pro tour, maybe just played a lot of Comp RL events. But
Yeah, last year we had the GP in Portland was modern GP, and I felt like the Guardian Game regulars all were feeling very prepared for it, and everyone was up to snuff at the playstyle and quality necessary for a GP.
so it looks like we had a mulligan for Hunter here, and Urchin starts us off with a turn 1 Stirrings, which is the reason to be playing green.
Still a great card.
Perhaps I think it may have gotten pushed under a little bit with Faithless Looting perhaps being the best cantrip in Modern, but
So you're
Ancient
saying
Stirring.
Preordain's unbannable?
Ancient Stirring is hard. It's a little bit painful to say that look at that many cards is not the best
Yeah,
cantrip in Modern, but
so you're
it's
saying
maybe second
Preordain
best.
is unbannable.
I mean, if Preordain was unbanned, Urchin might just play blue and play Preordain and Ancient Stirring, so.
Okay.
I'm of the opinion that if
Kick once.
Ancient Stirrings was a problem, it's actually that Mox Opal is the problem.
We get a chalice, an ever-flowing chalice on one, not a
Right.
chalice of the void.
The Mana Chalice.
And a Mox Opal.
Go to 17 for a fountain.
I kind of wish Back to Basics was a Modern card.
Oh, that's an interesting one. It's like Choke is, and I think that they overlap in a lot of way.
Except you gotta play green if you're playing choke.
You do. Also, you have to be playing against blue. But you might be right. Back to basics might be the 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 better Blood Moon.
Oh, it looks like we've got a Monastery Mentor in the sideboard package of Hunter, which this has been interesting. I play a fair amount of Jeskai control, and I played against a blue-white deck last week here at Guardian, and I have come to the conclusion that Mentor is a really good sideboard threat, and maybe even better than Geist at this point. It can close out games faster. Um, the ability to provide chump blockers is really important for just stabilizing. And I've noticed a couple other people have started adopting that as well. I haven't seen it a lot on list online, but yeah, I think it's a very strong sideboard card, especially when your opponent, like, I doubt Urchin is going to board in or keep in any kind of removal.
I agree. The Geist has this weird vulnerability of being dead to a 2-power creature.
Right.
Whereas the Mentor can just continue to accrue advantage until you're able to win. Also, like clock considerations, you're going to have to win in a reasonable fashion after game 1.
Yeah, when you deploy Geist, you just have so much decisions about when to attack, if you're playing around Snapcasters or Flash creatures or Vials, but if you have a Mentor, you can just send in the monks and ask your opponents to
it's
make the
the
decisions.
white Arya Flame.
Yeah. Okay, the big question is Hunter going to have Prowess Monk tokens?
Oh, yes. Oh.
Kind of hard to come
I'm
by.
not sure. I'm not sure if Hunter is aware of the judgment faced before him on the tokens front. If
Yeah,
you're
we keep
make
an
a
Excel.
card that makes tokens, you are required to come equipped with said tokens.
Yeah, we've got an Excel sheet. We keep track of this stuff. Anyone that's listening or watching or reading, come prepared. I'm reserving my judgment until a non-creature spell is cast on Hunter's side.
Well, it's super fun to heckle behind a microphone. I think it would also be fun for us to have a supply of tokens here in the booth to like open the door and start throwing them at them during games.
I mean, yeah, people can totally throw us some bits for a token fund. That's more than welcome.
Right. Yeah.
All right, there's the core tapper for Urchin. Perhaps thinking how to pivot at this point if you're going to end up passing a turn back with Hunter having that Mentor on the battlefield.
So I was able to sneak that there was a Chalice of the Void in hand, and there was a deliberate choice of not putting that Chalice on 2 right now.
Mentor with Force of Negation, pretty strong. Force of Negation not quite as good as Force of Will because you can't use it on your own turn to protect your creature or your planeswalker, but when you pass the turn, it sure feels good.
We appear to be missing a monk token and
Oh,
instead
no.
have a dice.
But how do you know if a dice is tapped or not? Whew.
Also, is that a 1/1? Is that 1 token? What
Are
is
those
that?
prowess triggers? The ambiguity.
All 4 blockers?
Whoa, before blockers, something's going to happen. What is it going to be?
Yeah.
Beast Within targeting my cornucopia?
Whew, that's a spicy meatball.
Wow.
Yep, Force of Negation isn't going to stop that one.
Zing. You,
No, that's not how that works.
Okay, I'm going to
Yeah,
go.
we got to stop that.
Hey, pause. Force of negation, you can only pay the alternate
Oh, right, sorry.
Oh, good point.
Okay, so,
I will.
yep.
Okay.
Okay, so this is
All right.
Okay.
Had to go.
Also the beast token.
That was a nice thing to come back to.
Yellow cards on both sides of the table for lack of tokens.
Ooh.
and get a trigger from this up to 4.
All right. Okay. We had some interesting things happen here.
Yeah, so we had double prowess triggers on the Monastery Mentor, which are allowed it to become a 4/4 and not die to a beast token.
Chalice for
I will say that Hunter seemed very nonchalant when I corrected the force of negation ruling.
Right.
I'm sure if you have the surgical in hand, that's you're feeling all right if your opponent wastes a card to blow up one of their own permanents and then is effectively chump blocking. Although that was a really heads-up play on Urchin side of the table. Just ended up, you know, getting that end of the luck stick there.
I really appreciate both decks had some real play against an unorthodox board state.
So at this point, advantage bar pretty far on Hunter's side. Because even something like a Karn into Lattice, if that's possible, isn't going to stop. You know, we've got 3 creatures over
It may
here.
be the case that we could Karn into Ensnaring Bridge.
Yeah, if Ensnaring Bridge is going to be somewhere,
Yeah.
I'd assume that after games 1 and 2, it's going to exist in the sideboard. So.
Yeah, I might as well attempt it. Force pitch in our set. Sure. I'll make a token. And these are buffed by 1 ton of turn.
Oh, jeez. Using the same colored dice for prowess triggers and tokens.
Feel free, chat, to chime in on us heckling these decisions by our players.
All right, we're ghost quartering
Search for
Celestial Colonnade. Seems like that's a bit of a desperation play.
Yeah, I'm not even sure that that's going to be useful because the outs I would vision if I knew what this deck list was required more mana.
drop the turn. Minus down to 1.
Looks like we're got a Teferi, a Logic Knot. Just going for the Logic Knot there.
Go to combat.
All right, I like the flair of tapping the die, at least. That's
I feel convinced that they are tapped.
all right. We got a turn 0 right now.
End step. Well, I guess it's turn 0 because it's end step.
Yeah.
Okay. So end step, your turn 0. I'll
Okay.
charge here,
Okay.
and I'll charge again.
Got it.
End step.
We got bits. We haven't got bits in a long time. Someone threw us some bits. That feels good.
I'm an ignorant fool. I don't know.
Thank
if
you,
that's
Martin. That is lost. It's like a little bit of way to like throw some money at people.
Oh, is it cash?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
In response to the core tapper.
I think we're gonna have to figure out how much cash bits are and then how many tokens that can buy us.
Oh, I really like this idea. Using all bits for tokens.
Get a blocker off the board.
We could turn the delay photo into our token collection we've acquired thus far.
Oh, we got some good brainstorming going on. I'm glad you got to buy round 1, Jeremy.
Oh, thanks. I'm also totally going to go dig out a bunch of tokens for you guys. I have a pile of the actual blue Thopter tokens.
Oh.
Those are hard to come by at Game Store.
To be honest, as much as I'm giving Hunter a hard time for the monk tokens, I'm playing Mentors and I need some more monk tokens. I'm using non-prowess tokens. That's not entirely accurate.
I appreciate your honesty. I'm going to therefore judge you appropriately, though.
Well, I haven't been in a feature match here yet.
And then I will pass to you.
End step.
Okay.
I guess something like Karn into engineered explosives out of the side could be a way to stem the bleeding.
Oh, I still think Ensnaring Bridge is a nice call.
Bridge is great.
However, it seems unlikely there's not a Logic Knot sitting in her hand since we saw one.
I think there's a logic
Or
knot
is
and
it-
a force of negation.
Yeah.
So.
This Now it's just willing to see if he can pull us off this turn. Turn 4. Here we go. 15 damage. You got some spells? You gonna start countering your own stuff to get those prowess triggers?
I'm 1 point short, aren't I?
I hope not.
Yeah. Oh well. Move combat. Swing off.
Good luck.
Come on, cleverness. Path your dude, counter it. Logic, not that.
Second main.
I don't think there's. I think we're at
Play another one.
Mentor, Logic
Uh,
Not, and Force of Negation.
Yeah.
Turn 5 here.
Yep.
Perfect.
All right. Looks like Urchin played for the draw there. I think maybe if you cast
Right. Had he
Mentor and
countered
Logic
his own
Not, your
mentor,
Mentor.
I think that was going to be enough.
Yeah.
2, 3, 4, 11.
Okay.
Bliss on 5.
Assert dominance.
Yeah, I guess I'll respond just in case you have some way to kill me.
I don't.
Logic not.
Okay. Draw.
Yep.
Good. Well,
All right. Looks like that's
Yep.
going to do it. On
Draw,
turn
draw,
5, we
draw,
get a
draw.
draw here. See, yeah, maybe Hunter didn't see the line of
prowess.
the prowess.
Yep.
With
Sideboard cards
yeah.
are obscure. All right. Well,
Okay.
thank you guys for
Yeah.
having me. I'm going to go win now.
And
So,
we're going
thank you
to
very
take a break just for a minute here to wait for all the matches that are in time to wrap up. But we should be back here in, I'd say 1 to 4 minutes for round number 2 of 4, Modern Monday, here at Guardian
Hi.
Games.
She was at 1. I have 2 mentors out and 4 tokens.